let's take a look at business. Oil, there's nothing much to discuss there. It's still range bound. If you look at Brent crude this morning, still in the low $70 range. West Texas Intermediate, still the same story, still under $70. Not much there. Nigeria's benchmark, we're going to change that figure to $75, as I said yesterday, by 2025, because that's what it's for the 2025 budget. But there's really not much to say there. Let's get to Bitcoin. Dr. Abati mentioned this yesterday. Bitcoin earlier, in fact, I should check the price now because it continues to change. It topped 97,000 earlier this morning. Yeah, it's still at 97, so 97.3. 105. So it hasn't changed much. 97,000. Look, I had a guest who said it would touch 100,000 in March of 2025. And here we are. Now, this is on the back of the White House. News came out that the White House apparently wants to appoint someone to a Bitcoin position or a crypto position within the White House. We're not sure if it'd be an advisory role or the person will be a czar, which is CZAR. We'll see. But then that's kind of what pumped up, pushed up the price further. Asia markets are down this morning, pretty bearish across the board. You can see China, that's the Shanghai Composite Index, down 21 basis points. Hong Kong down. Nikkei, I should have added India, although the Kospi in Korea was up though. As I mentioned earlier, when Adefemi took us through the Gautam Adani issues, just showing you those shares now, part of his portfolio of companies. I mean, all in the red, double digits. So as I mentioned earlier, Adani Entertainment Limited, 21.35% down. Green Energy Limited, 17% down. Ports and Special Economic, 19%. Energy Solutions, all down. As she said already, he's building a massive solar plant. And apparently, allegedly, according to reports, he offered bribes in order to get a number of those plants. And the U.S. is now involved because he lied to investors to raise money. Another person who's also, facing the law is Bill Hwang. He, of course, if you remember, we covered this story earlier for Archegos Capital. This is about a $36 billion family office. He is about 60 years old. He was sentenced back in July, I think, or rather, he was convicted in July, and now he's been sentenced to 18 years in prison. He lied to his affiliates, banks, investment offices about the amount of funding that they were raising. A lot of this went based on false documents. He was charged, I think, on 11 counts of wire fraud and a number of other things. Prosecutors wanted 20 years or 21, got down to 18 years. So that's the latest on Mr. Hwang there. We come to Nvidia. Remember, Dr. Abati talked preview this yesterday. The numbers were good. Revenue 35 billion, estimates to 33. You can see adjusted earnings per share at 81 cents, beat the estimates to 74. Your gross margin, measuring your profitability, 75%. However, the sales outlook, that's the reason why the shares were down. You got Q4 sales outlook, they guided to 37.5 billion. They talked about their, Blackwell chip, saying that there's a lot of demand, but unfortunately, there is not enough supply to meet demand. Blackwell, I think chips should be coming out in the fourth quarter of this year, but they're saying they will be behind the curve for a number of quarters to come. So the shares fell. I mean, basically that sales outlook, investors, some of them were on the high end, they're looking at for about 40 billion. So it looks like Nvidia is just a victim of its own success because it's really growing quite quickly. To South Africa, we're expecting Lesotho Hanyego to give his decision, the decision of the South Africa Reserve Bank. Inflation falling to a 4-year low. You can see it at 2.8% for October. The forecast was for 3.1. September was 3.8. Just to emphasize, it's always good to use charts just to show you the trajectory of inflation in a particular country. South Africa, they've really weathered the storm. Headline inflation is in light blue, food inflation is in orange, and you can see them guiding downwards as we've moved from July of 2023 all the way to 2024. That's your headline. When you compare with, and we're starting to do a comparison between Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa, you can look at the difference there. South Africa is in the purple line all the way at the bottom there in single digits. You can see, Nigeria and Ghana on the higher end. That's headline inflation. It's the same story with food inflation. But you can see that Ghana's done pretty well with the light blue line there, from as high as 50% food inflation coming all the way down to the 20% level. But Nigeria rising, and you can see South Africa at the bottom there. And then we round off with a treasury bill auction in Nigeria that took place yesterday. You can see the 364-day bill. I tell folks as much as possible, invest, because the returns you get can help you through tough times. 540 billion was the offer, 1.1 trillion was the subscription. It was oversubscribed for the 364-day bill, undersubscribed for the 91 and 182. And at the bottom of your screen, there, the very bottom right, if you look at the true yield, 30.71% on a 23.5% 364-day bill. So, again, this is the flip side of raising rates, making your securities more attractive. That's our updates on business for today.
My focus is on South Africa because, of course, we're waiting for the MPC outcome for today from the South African Reserve Bank. I think it's unanimous across most of the economic analysis I read yesterday was saying that given that the inflation, he surpassed the inflation target because they were hoping to just get down to 3%, and it's now 2.8. So everybody is saying, let us breathe, cut those rates again. They're expected to cut those rates. But, the interesting thing that's happening in South Africa is that I believe it was just last month, you even had people protesting against austerity. People are saying, we're tired of the government just tightening belts. We need some type of injection into the economy. We need jobs to be created. Small businesses need funding. People need to survive. You need to remember that South Africa's financial inclusivity rate is very high. So the number of people who have access to credit, who have access to mortgages, who are involved in the financial system, is very high. So these rate hikes affect people directly in their households, which is slightly different to here in Nigeria, where they affect business more directly than they affect, so people are saying they can't make their car payments, they can't, all sorts of things. So people are saying, hopefully something can be done before Christmas so people can have just a little something to play with this Christmas. However, what I thought was most profound was what they're attributing to this massive inflation reduction is a reduction in fuel prices.
Thank you.
Aren't they lucky?
And food as well, right?
God's favorite children. They must be, because we're also waiting to feel the impact of a reduction in fuel price. The same fuel, in fact, with our own oil. But, that's a conversation for another day.
Okay, let me come in further on Gautam Adani, the second richest man in Asia. And I said, when Adefemi Akinsanya was with us, that this has to do with the Foreign Corrupt Act, Violation Act of the United States. Now, this offense, these alleged criminal offenses were committed in India, not in the United States, where United States companies were involved. In other words, it draws our attention to the transnational nature of international trade. Now you can commit a crime in India and it will have implications because of the partners that are involved. And the Adani Group conglomerate, as it is known, is been accused of having involved itself in bribery and massive fraud. In fact, out of the 7 indicted persons, only 1 person lives in India. It will be interesting how the case plays out. And I said that Adani is not particularly innocent. Before now, the Hindenburg Research Group accused him of being a con man on an international scale. But we'll see how that plays out. Now, Asia Pacific markets responding to this all dropped. From the South Korea KOSPI to the mainland China CSPI 300 to the Japanese Nikkei 225, because, in other words, all the Adani Group related stocks went down. The other reason they went down also was trying to look at the fallout of Nvidia. Nvidia, by the way, that takes me to the third topic, posted better than expected results yesterday, 94% year on year. But if you look at it in terms of range, there's been a consecutive drop over the quarters from 222% to 122% to 100%. And then the shares dropped by 2.5%. But the bigger question with Nvidia is that this is the biggest chip-making, company in the business. But Blackwell is also doing well. All the customers, Microsoft, Oracle, the Amazon, they are all, making promises and buying up. But the issue is, when Trump comes with his tariffs, what is likely to happen?
Thank you, sir. Good question.
That's the big question in the room. Nvidia doing well, but what does a Trump presidency prove? And I will close by talking about our own industry. Now, do you know that there is connection between Trump trade, and politics and markets? Fox News, in the week November 11 to 17, was the first company, the only company to hit the over 1 million benchmark in terms of cable news audience. CNN did 330,000. What's the other one? MSNBC did, I think, 880,000. So you see politics. Fox News now is in the ascendancy.
They're going to enjoy.
Which just explains how vulnerable we are as media channels, also monitoring politics and making comments, sometimes making comments out of turn because we have access to microphone.
Indeed. Good point.
Thank you very much.